Hello everyone, in this video we're going to be doing the news homepage, which is the latest challenge from Frontend Mentor. And so to begin, we're just going to click on this card, and then I'm going to say start challenge, and then I'm going to say get started, and then download starter, which is going to download the starter files for me. And so once it downloads the starter files, I'm just going to navigate into my downloads folder, and then I'm going to look for news homepage, this one right here, and then I'm just going to extract it. So right click and say extract here, and then it is going to extract into, where is it, this one, into this folder, which I'm just going to right click and say open with code, which is going to open up an instance of Visual Studio Code into this folder. When it opens up, you can see we have the assets here, we have the design, the gitignore, index.html, the readmes, and the style guide markdown file. So what I'm going to do is I want to open this up, and I want to open the design file. So inside the design file, I'm just going to get the desktop design as well as the mobile design. We need to take a look at how they look. And so for the desktop, we have a navbar on the top, and then we have this showcase section. So this is one, this entire part is one, and then this is another part, and then these are 3 grids. And then let's take a look at the mobile, how it looks. So it's just stacked one on top of the other. Okay, so one on top of the other. Okay, let's see. And then when the navbar opens, it opens up from the right going to the left, and then this pops up. Okay. And then we also have the hover states here. So when you hover over them, this is how the links should look like. So what I'm going to do is we're going to be building this in vanilla HTML and CSS. I've been using Tailwind CSS for quite a few projects. So for this one, I'm just going to use vanilla CSS. So to get started, what I'm going to do is inside my workspace, I'm just going to create a new file here called index.css. And then I'm also going to create a new file called index.js just to handle our navbar. So the JS file is just going to be for our navbar. And then I'm going to go inside my index.html. And then right below this, I'm going to link my CSS file. So link the index.css file. And then right below, where is it? Above the closing body tag, I'm going to link my script file into index.js. And then change this up, change this to my website, and then change this to my name. Okay, and then now we can take a look at how we want this to be structured. So the way I want it to be structured is I would need the navbar. So let me get the navbar out first of all. So all the way to categories, yes, this one. I'm going to place it inside a header tag, and then inside a nav element. And then above this, I'm going to place in my logo, which is this W. Let me just check that we are provided with it inside the assets, images, and the logo SVG. So inside here, I'm going to place it inside a div, and then add in an image coming from assets / images / logo.svg. And then let me check the fonts. So we have the inter font here. We're going to be using the bold, extra bold, and regular inter fonts. And probably I can just get this from Google Fonts, which I'm just going to do, by the way. I'm going to get them from Google Fonts. And then now inside the navbar, I'm going to grab this and place them inside a UL, so an unordered list, and then place them inside list items, so about 5 of them. And then cut this out, paste it here, cut this out, paste it here, cut this out, paste it here, and finally this one, paste it here, and then remove this space. There we go. So this is our header. We have our image here, our logo, and then we have our navbar. And then below this, we need our bigger image and then this title. So we are going to do this. Let me open this one. There we go. So we're going to grab, let me see where it ends, all the way to read more. Okay, you know what? This entire thing up to here is going to be one big section. And then that section is going to be divided into a div or an article, which is going to house this. And then inside this div, the parent of this one, we're going to have an element for this one, and then another element for this one, so that we can display grid on them so that this appears side by side. I hope that makes sense. We're going to do it practically, and then hopefully it's going to make much better sense. But that is how I'm looking at it. Like, that's how I want to structure it. So we're going to have, let me see where it ends, all the way to, that means is VC funding here. So grab this entire part, cut it out, place it inside the section, and then grab this top part up to here, cut it out, place it inside a div, and then above this we're going to have our bigger image. So let me place it, okay, let me just have it as an image tag. This is going to be assets / images / let me just get it, should be, which image is this? I think it should be these two images, because the laptops are this one, and then retro PCs, and then growth of gaming here, and then these are the menu icons, and then the favicon. So it should be these two images. So in order to fix that, in order to add them in, then we're not going to have an image tag, we're going to use a picture tag, and then we're going to have a source here with media, and we're going to say that we want to change into the desktop image when the device width is greater than 768 pixels. And then below this we're going to have an image that is coming from ./assets / images / the mobile image, and this one is going to show by default when the device is less than 768 pixels. And then what we want to do is just copy this and paste it here, and then change this, change this to desktop, which is now going to show the desktop image when the device width is greater than tablet size, which are 768 pixels. And then below this we're going to have this part, let me see. So this is going to be our h1, so h1, and then this is going to be a paragraph, and then this is going to be a button, so button, and then oops, paste it in. Let me see. So what we want is, this is going to be one element, and then these are going to be divided into two. So what we want to do is we want to grab this, place it inside, let me place it inside an article. Oops, why do I keep pressing that? So place it inside an article, because the logic is that I want to display this parent div as a grid, so that I can then go inside this article and display it as a grid as well, so that this appears side by side with these two, which means that the paragraph and the button here need to be one element as well, like they need to have one parent element, so we need to place them inside a div. And the structure looks horrible right now, but I'm using Prettier, so when I save it, it's going to format it properly. And then let's go ahead and then grab this second section, which is the new. So grab this, cut it out, place it inside a div, and then we're going to have this as an h2, so cut this out, place it inside an h2, and then we have 3 articles, so 1 and then 2 and then 3 articles, so cut this out, place it inside an article, and then this is going to be an h3 and a paragraph, so this is going to be an h3, and then this is going to be a paragraph. Oops, what is that formatting? Yeah. And then do the same for this, so cut this out, place it inside an article, grab this, place it inside an h3, grab this, place it inside a paragraph, and then do the same for this, cut this out, place it inside an article, cut this out, place it inside an h3, and then cut this out, place it inside a paragraph. So this second div right here is this darker section. And then finally we have this bottom part. So for the bottom part, we're going to do something similar to what we've done just above, where we're going to grab all of this, place it inside a parent div, and then we're going to grab this and place it inside an article. And then let me just do it for this one as well, place it inside another article, and then grab this and place it inside another article, because then when we display this parent div as a grid, then it's going to display one article as one grid, and then the second article as the other grid, and then the third article as the other grid. So what we're going to do is, how we want to structure it is, we want to have an image here, which is going to be this image. So ./assets / images / images / it should be what is called retro PCs. Let me just get the image here. And then this other part, so see how it is structured, it is quite a bit of flexbox and a grid here. So we have the image here, and then this other part is going to be another element. So we're going to grab this, and you know what, let me place it inside another div, and then we're going to grab this and place it inside a span that says 01. Oops, copied the wrong thing, so 01. And then this, let me say this is going to be an let me just say an h4. So cut this out, place it inside an h4, and then this is going to be inside a paragraph. How does that look? That looks okay. We're going to do the same for this. So cut this out, place it inside a span, cut this out, place it inside an h4, cut this out, place it inside a paragraph, and then add our image on top. Oops. Add our image dot slash assets images forward slash should be laptops, this one, and then add our image on the third article, come from dot slash assets forward slash images forward slash should be the growth of gaming. Cut this out, place it inside a span 03, cut this out, place it inside an h4, and then finally cut this out and place it inside a paragraph, and that should be the entire structure. Okay, that looks fine. And now what we need to do is we need to save this, and then I'm going to open this up using live server. So I have an extension called live server which helps me to launch a local development server. So this extension right here, once again, you don't have to use it, but this is what I'm going to be using because it offers hot reloading, which means every time that I make a change in my code editor, then it's automatically going to reflect in the browser. So I'm going to right click and say open with live server. And once it opens up, you can see that this is what we're going to have as our structure. So we have everything inside here. And the first thing that I want to do is I want to go into fonts.google.com. So fonts.google.com so that we can get the inter font. And we need the bold, extra bold, and regular. Let me just confirm from the style guide. So the 400, 700, and 800. So let's search for inter. We need the 400. Loading. So let's get the 400. Okay, let me zoom out, it's a bit big. So let's get the 400, 700, and 800. And then using the import tab, zoom back in so that you can see. Then I'm going to copy this URL. And then I'm going to go inside my index CSS and then just paste it in. And then I'm going to specify that the body should have a font family of inter with a fallback of sans serif in case this fails to load. And you know what, let me say that for everything should have a font family of inter so that it applies even on the buttons. And you can see that now the font changes inside here. And where is my button? Even now my button has a font family of inter. If I were to remove this just to show you what is going to happen, then you can see that this reverts back to the original font of your system. But when you enable it, then the font changes. So now what we're going to do is this. We're going to add in a bit of global styles because you can see that elements have some bit of spacing by default, and we don't want that because it is going to seriously mess up with our styling when we get into the styles. So what I'm going to do is right inside my asterisk here, I'm going to say that, let's revert the margin back to 0. And then let's also revert the padding back to 0. And let's set the box sizing to border box, which just tells the browser to use the CSS box model, which means that apply padding on the outside of elements. Apply padding on the inside of elements and apply margin on the outside of elements. And that is the box model. And then we're going to go inside the body. We're going to specify a default font size of 16 pixels, and it is 16 pixels by default. So this really doesn't matter all that much. And then let me just check to see whether, because it seems as though the body has a background color here. I can't really tell all that well. It might be white, but I can't tell all that well. So let me just confirm that these colors are, that there's none for the background color, and I can't see any. So the default font size here is specified to 15 pixels. So our default rem value is now going to be 15 pixels instead of 16. And you know what, this should probably be specified on the HTML element so that it applies on everything. And then let's specify for all the images to have a max width of 100% so that they don't overflow outside of the container in which they are placed. And then we can also say give them a width of 100% so that they take up 100% of their container. And then let's specify for all the ULs to not have any list item, any list styling. So list style, come on, set this to none. So list style type, set this to none so that it removes these bullets. And then let's say that for all the links, we don't have any links. Yeah, we don't need to add that in. So let's save this, and you can see that everything reverts because now they are images, we have set the images to have a max width of 100%. So that's why this takes up 100% of the screen, as well as this one. And you can see that the bullets have been removed, and the spacing now, like the spacing is now removed as well. You can see this. So that is much better to begin with, and we're going to begin with the mobile version because it is much easier to deal with. And what we're going to do now is this. I'm just going to go ahead and we need to go inside this header. I'm going to give this header a class name of header, and then I'm going to give this section a class of showcase, just so that it's easier. And then let's say we have this picture tag, we have the picture tag, we have the article, and then we have these two divs. Okay, we should be able to style that out correctly. And then on the bottom here, I'm going to give this a class of cards, and then save this. I don't want to use many class names because it's going to be like it's going to populate the HTML quite a lot. So let me go ahead and let's start with our header. So our class of header. So right below this, I'm going to access the class of header, and I'm going to say display flex on this. So display this as a flex box so that now they place side by side. And then in order to bring this downwards just a bit, I'm going to say align item center, bring it downwards, and then I'm going to say justify content to space between so that they take it end to end. And then for the header, I'm going to specify a padding all round of 32 pixels just to bring it inwards and downwards just a bit. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide this navbar on mobile, but we're going to come back to it later. So I'm going to say that for the header and for the nav element, then display none on it, so that it just disappears for now. And then we're going to go ahead and access the showcase. And let me just remember how the showcase is on mobile. So here you can see that it is pushed in just a bit. And you know what, let me reduce this padding. Let me reduce the padding on our application because this is moved in quite a bit. So let me reduce this to 20. And instead of using pixels here, let me use rem values. So about 1.25 rem. And 1.25 rem, because we are using 15 pixels here, 1.25 rem is not 20 pixels. And if you want to get the exact value that it is, then multiply 15 by 1.25, and then you're going to get your pixel value here. And then for the showcase, we're going to do this. We're going to say add a padding all round of 1.25 rem as well, just to be uniform with everything. And you can see that it pushes inwards. And then we're going to do this. And you know what? It has applied padding on the top as well. So let me say padding top, padding dash top, set this to 0. That it pushes upwards just a bit instead of adding the another padding of 1.25 rem on the top. And the reason why this applies is because of CSS specificity, because we have applied it more to the bottom than the actual padding declaration that we have inside here. So if I were to move this downwards, then you'll see that the spacing is going to apply because now this one has more specificity. And that is the meaning of cascading style sheets, meaning they're just evaluated going downwards like a waterfall. And then let's see what we need to do. We need to make this bigger. We don't need to deal with the image because as you can see that the image really has no styling that we're going to apply to it. And then we're going to do this. We're going to access the showcase and then access the div because we have, where is it? We have the showcase, we have this div, and then we have the article and then the h1. So let me do this because I don't want to have multiple class names, right? And we know that this is the only h1 that we have in this project. So I'm just going to say for the showcase h1, then I'm going to increase the font size to about 2 rem. How does that look? Okay. And then we need to change this color into, because this color is not black. So we need to change this color into, let me see, dark grayish blue or very dark blue. We're just going to do a bit of trial and error. That is not the correct one. Should be this one. Oops, copy it, don't cut it out. And paste it inside here. That's the correct one. There we go. The change is barely visible, but you can tell that it's not completely black. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a margin on the top. And I'm going to say margin top of, let me say 1 rem. And then I'm going to say margin bottom of 1 rem as well. Let me see, how does this look? It's similar. It has a equal margin on the top and bottom. And then now instead of writing these 2 lines, then I'm going to remove them. I'm going to remove this. And I'm going to say specify a margin of 1 rem on the top and bottom and 0 on the left and right. And it does the exact same thing. And then let's go ahead into the showcase, and then let me access the paragraph here. But then accessing this, let me show you what is going to happen. If I have a margin on the bottom of 2 rem, then it's going to apply even on these paragraphs, because we're accessing every paragraph inside the section that has a class of showcase. And so if you only want to access this one, let me see if we need to have padding on this one. Not really padding, but we also need to have some kind of margin here. But because I don't want to do that, then I only want to access this first paragraph. So I'm going to say that for the showcase, and then for the div, which is the first element, so first child, and then I want to access the article of the first child again, so first child, and then access the paragraph. And then when I save this, you can see that now this doesn't apply, so I'm accessing this wrongly. Let me just confirm that I have the correct hierarchy. So section, and then I have the div here. Okay, inside the div, and then let me access the article. So this article is not first child, it should just be article. There you go. So you can see that the margin of bottom of 1 rem applies to this paragraph, and it no longer applies to these other ones as well. And then what I've just realized is I want these paragraphs to have a line height, all of them. So I'm going to go back to the top right below this, and I'm going to specify for all the paragraphs to have a line height of 1.8, just so that they're spaced out just a bit. And then I'm going to change the color because they are a bit grayed out in the design. Where is it? They're a bit grayed out here. You can see that they are not completely black. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this color, should be the correct one, and then paste it inside here to be the color for the paragraphs. And yeah, you can see that that is correct. And then once we have that, then we are going to go inside. You know what? 1 rem here is a bit too small. Let me say 2 rem. Let me check the design. Oh, sorry, we don't have the button. We have not installed the button. So let me take this back to 1 rem, and then I'm going to copy this and place it below this, and then I'm going to access the button, and I'm going to give this button a background color of red, which should be, where is it? Soft red, this one. Copy and paste it inside here. Save it. Oops. There we go. So there we go. That's our button. And then we're going to change the text color into white. We're going to have a padding of 1 rem on the top and bottom, and 2 rem on the left and right. Okay, we're going to change the font size into 1 rem, which should increase it just a bit. And let me change this to 0.5 rem on the top and bottom, or 0.8. There we go. We're going to remove that black border that it has, so I'm going to say border none. And then when we click on it, when it is highlighted, I don't want to have an outline, so I'm going to say outline none. And then let me see what we need to do now. We need to capitalize the text, so we're going to say text transform, set this to uppercase. And then we need to have a bit of letter spacing, so letter spacing, let me set this to 0.2 rem. And there we go. And you know what, the font weight needs to be bold as well, so make it bold. And then move this up to here. And you know what, is it bold or semi-bold? It looks as though it is semi-bold. It looks as though it is semi-bold, so let me say semi-bold. Wait, semi-bold doesn't exist, so let me say 700 because we have a 700 font weight. Does that even change? Okay, it does change. Just a bit, barely visible, but it does change. And then let's go inside this second div. And this second div is going to be this one right here. And what we're going to do now is, instead of accessing the first child here, we're going to copy this, and then we're just going to say access the last child, which is the second div in this case. And then we're going to give this a background color of this one. It is the dark color. Okay, so I've done something wrong. What have I done something wrong? So this is the first div that ends here on read more, and then this second div begins here. Why doesn't this work? So div last child, div first child. Let me say nth child 2. This is something that I hate about CSS, because it doesn't really tell you why. Let me say showcase and then this. There we go. So we are saying showcase, and then we're accessing the immediate div, which is the nth child of 2, or the last child. So here last child should now work. There we go. So it works correctly. So that now this background color, it doesn't apply to the first div, but it only applies to the second div. And then for this one, I'm going to have a margin on the top. So I'm going to say margin top, set this to about 2 rem, push it downwards from this. And then we're also going to have a padding all around of 1.25 rem, because I used 1.25 rem here as well. And then we need to access this H1. Sorry, this is an H2. I gave it an H2. So copy this, place it inside an H2, and we're going to say change this color into white. I think it's white by the way. Let me just confirm. It is not white. So it should be soft orange. Copy this, paste it here. There we go. We're going to have a margin on the bottom. So margin bottom of, let me say, 1 rem should be enough. And then let's access all the H3s and change them from black into white. So copy this, paste it inside here, access the H3s, change the color into white. Okay, and then we're going to have a margin bottom of 0.5 rem to push away from the paragraph just a bit. And then what we need to do is, the H3 has a hover state. Let me confirm. Yes, when you hover over the H3s, then it changes this color into soft orange. So we're going to copy this, and we're going to say that for the hover state of the H3, then we want the color to change to this, and save it so that now when you hover over it, then you have this, and then change the cursor to pointer. So cursor changes to pointer, and we're going to have that. Would you look at that? And then now what we need to do is we need to access the articles, because remember we placed these inside articles. And the reason why we need to access the articles is because we need to have this bottom line for some of them. And so what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to go copy this, and then below this, you know what, the articles come after the H2. So cut this out and place it below the H2. And we're going to say that we want to access the articles, and then we're going to give them a border bottom of 2 pixels solid. And let me just give it white, even though I know it's not white. So let's reduce this to 1 pixel. It is not completely white, it is grayed out. Should be grayish blue. Let's confirm. Paste it here. So this is not the correct color. Let's try out the off-white. This one, copy, paste it here, save it. Can't really even tell what's the difference. Is it the grayish blue? Is it this one? Copy this and paste it here. Is it this one? Okay, that's the correct color. And then we can see that we don't want the border bottom on the last article. On the last article here, it doesn't have a border on the bottom. And so in order to fix this, and in order to remove this border on the bottom on this last one, we can use another, what is it called, a pseudo property in CSS called not. So we're going to say full colon not, and then place in our brackets, and then we're going to say full colon last child, and then save it. And you can see that the border on the bottom is not placed on the last child. And so what this means is that place a border on the bottom on every other element except the last child, and the last child is this last article that we have inside here. And then we are going to do this. We're also going to say we want a padding. We want to have a padding on the top and bottom of these elements, of these articles. So I'm going to copy this and place it above this, and we're going to say padding dash bottom, and let me say about 1 rem, because we need this to separate. And it's not even padding on the bottom, it's padding on the top and bottom, and then 0 on the left and right, because we need them to separate from one another. Let me increase this to 1.25 rem. That should be okay. And then remember how we added a margin on the bottom of the H2? We can now remove it because we have added a padding on the top of this article so that it is spaced out. And then we also have some padding on the bottom of this article because we added a padding all around here, remember? So we can say, we can change this up, and we can say the padding is going to apply on the top, and then we're going to say it's going to apply on the left and right. So 1.25 rem on the left and right, and then 0 on the bottom, so that this shrinks down just a bit, so that like the padding is evened out, you can see. So that's looking okay, and that is this section. And then we have this final section. Let me check how it looks on mobile. And so on mobile, it looks simple enough. So let's do it right away. And we're going to say this for the class of cards. So below this showcase, we're going to access the class of cards. And then we're going to say we have a padding of, let me say, 1.25 rem all around. Push them inwards. And then we are going to do this. I'm going to access the articles, so for the cards, and then for the articles, and then I'm going to say display flex on them, so that now they're going to be placed side by side. Remember how we structured it? We have this article, and then we have the image being the first element, and then the div being the second element. So that's why they're placed side by side. And then let me just confirm this. So okay, looking okay. So what we can do here is we can have a gap of about 1 rem just to separate them out a bit. Or you know what, we've been using 1.25 rem, so let me just use 1.25 rem. And then let's go ahead and access the span, and the span are these numbers. So for the cards article and then the span, we're going to change the color into the gray color here. We're going to change the font weight. Did I do something wrong? Oh, I'm missing a semicolon. So font weight changes to bold. Let me see. And then we need to change the font size. So font size, change this to about 2 rem. And then okay, something is wrong. Oh, I structured this. Oh, I've structured this too wrongly. How did I do it? So div. Oh, so this needs to be inside a div. I didn't place them inside a div. Okay, so let's just fix that. Cut this out. Let's insert the div. There we go. That's much better. So for the span, and then let's reduce the opacity to about 75%. And then let's check how these H4s are structured. Just a bit bigger in size. So for the cards, articles, span, and for the H4, we're going to say increase the font size to about 1 rem. Okay, that's too small. 1.25 rem. Still too small. Wait a minute, it's not inside a span. It's not inside a span. Okay, reduce this to 1 rem. Okay, still too small. Let's just use 1.25 rem. And then we need to change this color into this dark gray color. Okay, and then let's have a margin on the top and bottom of 1 rem, and then 0 on the left and right, so that it pushes away from this number as well as from this text. And then we're going to go back inside this article, and then I'm going to say align at center, which is going to align this to the center just a bit. And then let's access these images and reduce their size. So below this, I'm going to say for the cards, for the article, for the image, I'm going to increase the width. Let me increase the width to about 75% so that they are all limited. Something is wrong. What am I doing wrong here? Because I need these images to all be the same width. I need the images to all be the same width, as you can see. I think instead of giving this a percentage width, let me give it a width of, let's say, 150 pixels. Okay, there we go. So 150 pixels. And then now what we need to do is we need these articles to be separated out because they are a grid. So inside this cards parent, we're going to say display grid. Display grid with grid template columns, and set this to repeat once with 1 fractional column each, and then give this a gap of about 1.25 rem. And there we go. Would you look at that? Let's see. Increase this gap. Let's make it 2 rem. 2.5 rem. Yeah, let's work with 2.5 rem. That is looking okay, and you can see that this is the mobile design, looking quite nice. All we need to do is we need to have the hover effect for this button. So let me just figure out the button is here, copy this downwards, paste it here, and access the hover state, where we're going to say change the background color into this dark color, and it's going to be like this. And then we're going to say have a cursor of pointer as well, And then we can add a transition here so that doesn't pop in. So transition all the properties by 0.3 seconds with an ease in out, so that now it transitions in instead of just popping in. And then now all we need to do is just scale this up. So if I drag this upwards, you can see that we don't want this to look like this on larger screens, right? So what we're going to do is this: we're going to switch back into our desktop tab, and this is how it looks on desktop, and we're just going to be playing around with the CSS grid. So what we're going to do is we're going to be using media queries now. So let me make this upwards and then increase this and then make this split screen. Or not, let me not make it split screen. Let me just go back to the bottom, and I'm going to say I'm going to add a media query, and I'm going to say that for a min width of 1024 pixels, which are large screens. And what this means is that these styles that we're going to be writing inside here are only going to be applying when the device width is greater than 1024 pixels, which is the standard size for a laptop. So what we're going to do is this: we're going to be accessing the showcase, and then now we're going to display the showcase as a grid. And remember that the showcase starts from this image, this big image, all the way up to here. So if I display grid and I say grid template columns to repeat twice for one fractional column each, look what happens. This is what happens. See that? And so once we have this, you can see that they're now displaying side by side, meaning this part is one grid and then this is the second grid. Now I'm just realizing that I don't want to deal with display grid because it would mean having to manipulate a lot of styles before we get the structure that we want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this, and I'm going to use flexbox, which is going to do the same thing, as you can see. And then we're going to have a gap here of about, let me say 2 rem, separate it out from here, and then we're going to access this second div and remove the margin on the top that we added. Remember, we added a margin on the top here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that for the showcase, and then I want to say, what was it? We want to access the div, which is the last child, and we're going to say margin top, set this to 0. It removes the margin on the top. And then let me see how this is structured. Okay, so this is an issue. See how we are overflowing quite a bit here? We also need to limit, we need to limit this. So what I'm going to do is, let me see here, right on top of this, I'm going to access the body, and I'm going to say that the body should have a max width of 1000 pixels. Let me see how this looks. How small are you? Okay, 1000 pixels is a bit too small. And then let me just say reset the margin. So set the margin here to auto so that it goes back to the center. It looks a bit small, right? It does look small. So let me not do this here. Let me just do this. Let me do it on top where we have our body. Do I have a body tag? I do not. So let me place it on below this. Change this into 1100 pixels, which is just going to increase it just a bit. And then we're going to access the second article. Is it an article or a div? How did I structure it? Let me check. We have a showcase, we have this div. So we want to access the first div and then access the article. Okay, so we're going to do this. We're going to go back into our CSS, go back to the bottom here, and then we're going to go about this, and we're going to say for the showcase, we want the div, which is the first child, and then we want to access the articles, and then inside here we're going to say display this as a grid with the grid template columns to repeat twice and one fractional column each. And you can see that this is what happens. And then let me see, we need to increase, wait, this isn't bold. What? Where did I have my H1? Where's my H1? Here. I thought this was bold. So font weight changes to 800. I thought it was bold, but now it's bold. And then we need to increase the size of this H1. So let me go ahead and copy this part and then go right below this and then increase the font size of the H1 to about 3 rem. How does that look? That looks okay. And then let's go below this and increase the gap here to about 2 rem as well. Separate it from this, and then let's move it downwards by saying place items center. Oops, there we go. So that now it moves downwards just a bit, and you can see we have this. Okay, so 1100 pixels is still feeling a bit squeezed. It still feels a bit squeezed. So let's increase this to 1200 pixels. I think that's much better. And then now what we need to do is I need to increase the margin on the top here so that this pushes downwards. Let me just check. Yeah, it has a bit of margin. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into our code editor, go to the bottom, and then inside the first child here. So let me copy this. Copy, is it this one? Let me check. Where's the image? The image is this one. So inside the article, it's inside the article. So right inside the article, I'm just going to say margin. Let me say margin. Should I have a margin on the top and bottom? No, only margin on top. So I'm going to say margin top of 2rem, so that it pushes downwards just a bit. That's looking much better. And then let's go ahead and fix this now. So inside the class of cards, below this, we're going to say that inside the class of cards, we want to display this as a grid with grid template columns to repeat 3 times for one fractional column each, so that now they're going to be structured 1, 2, and 3. And then let's increase the margin on the top. So let's say margin top, set this to 2rem, push it downwards just a bit. That is looking okay, and I'm feeling as though it's a bit squeezed. Is it just me? I'm feeling as though this is a bit squeezed. Probably I should adjust the margins. Maybe not. You know what? Let me go inside the body. Let me go inside the body. Let me access the body here, or let me go to the top. And then inside the body, I'm going to have a padding on the bottom of 2rem, so that we have a bit of leeway when we scroll down. You know what? Let me say 4rem. We're just going to have a bit more leeway here when we scroll down. And then the header can remain. We can increase some the padding on the header on large screens. So right around here, I'm going to access the header, and I'm going to say, let's increase the padding here to, let me say 2rem. And you know what, this should be padding of 2rem on the top and bottom and 0 on the left and right. Or I don't want this to go all the way to the end, so let me maintain it at 1.25 rem on the left and right, so that now it is evened out. Yeah, that's looking okay. And then let's increase the size of this attribution, and the attribution is in our index.html. Let's change it to 14 pixels. Okay, and then let's have a margin on the top. So margin top, change this to about 2rem, push it downwards away from this, so that it's its own entity. And yeah, that's almost okay. But remember that for tablet size screens, look at how it looks. Now this part for tablets, this is okay, but I want this to display as 1, 2, and then the third one here. So what we're going to do is, I'm just going to copy this part. Copy this part, and then I'm going to add another media query on top of this, and I'm going to say at media for a min width of 768 pixels, which are tablets. Then I want this to change into 2 grids. And then you know what, because I'm going to add the margin top here, then I don't need to add it on the bottom because it is already applied on the top. So we're going to save this, and then now you can see it's going to be 1, 2, and 3. So it begins by 1 grid on mobile, and then on tablets it goes into 2 grids, and then on large screens it goes into 3 grids. And then, by the way, because we have already applied these styles on top, then we also don't need to apply this once again because it is already a grid. Okay, so we have that, and then now let's deal with our navbar. So let's take this back to mobile screens, and then let's take this back to the left. And then we're going to have this. So let's begin by first adding our image, and our image is going to be, where are you? We're going to add it below this navbar. We're going to have a div. This div is going to be a button, and we're going to have an image here coming from assets / images / should be icon menu, and it should appear here. And then we're going to say we're going to access this div. Let me give this div a class of menu. You know what, let me not say class, let me say id equals to menu button, because we're going to be accessing it in JavaScript and I want to use the id. And then let's go, where's our navbar? Our navbar is here. So let me go and access the dot header for the navbar, sorry, for the dot header, and say for the menu dash button. And then I'm going to say this, I don't want this. You can see it has some kind of background here. That background is on the button. So if I access the button and set the background here, set this to transparent, then it's going to be removed. And then we're going to remove the outline as well. So remove outline, set this to none. And then remove the border as well. That's the border actually. There we go. So we're going to have this, and then change the cursor into pointer when we hover over it. and we're going to have this. And then now what we need to do is, I want this to be hidden on large screen. So I'm going to copy this, and on the bottom right on 1024 pixels here, I'm going to go below this and I'm going to say display this as none. Display none. Meaning when I get to large screens, then my navbar is going to disappear. You can see that it disappears, but on less than 1024 pixels, then my navbar is going to appear. My menu button, not my navbar, my menu button. And then now let's go ahead and begin to style out our actual navbar. And remember, we displayed it as none here, right? So I'm going to remove this, and then our navbar is now going to appear here. And then what I'm going to do is, we want the navbar to be styled a certain way when it is open. We want it to be styled like this. So what we're going to do is this, and I'm going to say this. Let me see. I can bring it in from the left going all the way to the right. Let's see. So I'm going to say that when the navbar has a class of open here, that's when I want to apply a background color here of white. And then we are going to say this. We're going to say position this absolute, bring this upwards, and then we're going to say bring it to the right by 0, to the top by 0, to the bottom by 0, and to the left by 0, with a width of 75 viewport widths, which is technically 75% of the entire screen. Save this. And then now, in order to test this out, then we're going to go inside the nav element here and give this a class of open to see where it is. You can see that this is where it is now. And okay, so this is not technically where I want it to be. I want it to be on the left instead. On the right, sorry, on the right. So that means that I can remove this from here. There we go. So we don't need to have this in. And then what we need to do now is we're going to have a padding of 1.25 rem all around. Bring it downwards. And then, you know what? I want this UL to move 50% from the top. So let me go ahead and say for the header, nav, and then access the UL. Then I'm going to say position this absolute, and then bring it to the top by 50%, and then transform, because this is not, it is 50% from the top, but it is offset just a bit. So I'm going to say, where is it here? Transform, and I'm going to say translate on the y-axis, because we are bringing it downwards, so the y-axis by minus 50%, which is going to bring it to the proper center. And then we're going to copy this and then access the list items. So for the list items, and we're going to say have this a margin of let's say 1 rem on the top and bottom. Oh, sorry, 1 rem on top and bottom and 0 on the left and right, so that they don't move inwards anymore. And then let's see, they are bigger just a bit, so increase the font size to 1 rem. You know, let me just say 16 pixels, because 1 rem is 15 pixels. Oops, 16 pixels. That's okay, that's okay. And you can see that this is our navbar. And then, you know what, let me add a box shadow. Where is it? For the navbar, open here. Let me add a box shadow, and I'm going to say add a box shadow of 4 pixels on the horizontal, 4 pixels on the vertical, and 4 pixels on the blur, with an RGBA color, so transparent black. So let's say 000 and 0.5 on the opacity, and that doesn't apply. Let me say -4, -4, and -4. Oops, -4. Because that, I can't even tell where it is. Or you know what, I want to be able to move with the navbar when I scroll down. So instead of this being absolute, let me change it to fixed, so that now when I scroll, then the navbar is also going to scroll. And then see how these numbers are on top of like the navbar. I don't want that to happen, so I'm going to give this a z index of 999, or like an insanely large number, so that it is always going to be on the top no matter what happens, so that now we don't see that, right? And now this box shadow doesn't apply. I don't even know whether you can apply negative box shadows anyway, so let's just remove it. And by the way, you know what, I'm missing something. You see how it is like a bit transparent here? You can try to add that by going inside the parent of the navbar and then adding a transparent background to it, but I don't want to do that. And then now what you need to do is, let me increase this spacing just a bit here, change this to 2 rem. No, let me change it to 1.5 rem. Now what we need to do is we need to add our cross here, our X, when we what's it called, when you open our navbar. So what I'm going to do is right inside the navbar here, I'm going to add an image. You know what, let me add in the button, and then inside here I'm going to add an image coming from /images /assets /images, and then the icon menu close, and it should appear here. You can see this. And then what we're going to do is this button, I'm going to give this a class, or you know what, let me give it an ID. Oops, button, give this an ID of menu -close. And you know what, I've just realized that I gave this ID to the wrong place. So let me cut this out, place it on the button, and then give this div a class of menu -button, which means that we need to change up our styles a bit, because now we need to access the class of .menu button and then the button inside, and then we need to change it here as well. So .menu button and then the button, so that these styles actually apply correctly. And then we are going to go ahead inside our navbar. So for the header now, let me go here for the .header, and then for the navbar, and then I want to access the ID of menu -close. What do they call it? Menu close or close menu? Menu close. Okay, menu close. And then we're going to say, give this background a background of transparent, and then remove the border, so border none, and then outline, set this to none as well. And then we're going to say position this, position absolute, and then bring it to the right by 1.25 rem, and 1.25 rem because we have a padding of 1.25 rem on the header. So just to keep everything uniform, and you can say that this is now correct. And then give this a z index of about 99 as well. So that is, it's going to be on top, or let me say 999. And why can't I click this? Oh, change the cursor to pointer. Change the cursor to pointer so that we can actually see that we are hovering over it. Okay, that's looking okay. Now what we need to do is we need to apply these tiles when we click on our menu button. So we are going to go back inside our index.html, and then we're going to remove this class from here. We're going to remove it, which means that these are not going to apply. And by the way, see how we were saying this too? We don't want to be able to see this navbar. So, and where is it? Oh, we're also seeing this. So what we need to do is we need to go ahead and say that for the header nav, so header nav, by default, we want the opacity to be 0 so that it disappears. And then we need the z index here to be -99 so that it goes behind everything, so that we don't accidentally like click on the navbar when we don't intend to. And then when it has a class of open, then we need the opacity to change to 1. So right, let me go about this, and we're going to say change the opacity to 1, and then the z index here is already reset to this. And then we're going to also have a transition because I don't want it to just pop in. So I'm going to say transition everything, so all the elements by 0.3 seconds, and then is in out. Okay, see how it loaded in and then disappeared just for a moment. So now let's go ahead and deal with our JavaScript. So inside our JavaScript, we're just going to test whether everything is working correctly by sending an alert that says working, and it should say working here, so that is okay. And then what I'm going to do is we're going to bring in our elements. So we want to get our navbar. So our navbar is equal to document.query selector, and you want to select the nav element, that is our navbar. And then we also need to get our menu button. So I'm going to say, let me call it open menu. Open menu is equal to document.getElement by ID, and you want the ID of menu-button. I think that's what I gave it. Let me confirm. Menu button ID, so not the class but the ID. And then let's also go ahead and get our close menu here. So const close menu is equal to document.getElement by ID. You want the menu-close. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add an event listener on this. And then when you click on it, then we want to add the class of open on the navbar. So we're going to say open menu dot add event listener, and we're listening for a click event. When we click on it, then we want to trigger a function here, and the function is going to say navbar dot class list dot add, and we're adding the class of open on the navbar, so that when I save this and I click on this, look at this, now our navbar opens. And then we want to add a similar event on this, so that when I click on this one, now the navbar closes. So I'm going to copy this, paste it downwards, and then change this to remove. So we are removing the class of open, and then on the element that we click on called close menu, so that now I'm going to click on this, it opens up, and then when I click on this, it closes. So that's okay. And why does it close with such force? Header nav open, menu close. Is it because the opacity doesn't like fade out slowly? And then let me give this a fixed position as well, because you can see that when I close it, it pops down a bit. So the menu close here, bring it to the right, and then bring it to the top by 1.5 rem as well, so that now when I open and close it, then it's on a fixed width. You can see that, not fixed width, but a fixed position. And then I just realized something, that I also want this, that when I hover over this, we have a cursor of pointer. So on the list items here, I'm going to say cursor pointer, save it, and then now when I hover over them, the cursor is going to be pointer. And then now what we need to do is just scale this up, so that on large screens, then the navbar is now going to appear on top. So the first thing that we're going to do is this. We are going to say, and by the reason why it's restructuring, see how it's restructuring, is because we have a fixed width of 75 viewport widths here. So the navbar is always going to take up 75 viewport widths of the entire device. So now what we need to do is this. We need to reset some of these styles. So now here, let me add a split screen by saying control and backslash. So control backslash adds this split screen. And then what we need to do is we need to reset these styles. So from the header nav, let me go to the bottom and say that for 1024 pixels, then we want to access the header nav. And for the header nav, we're going to say opacity set this to 1, opacity set this to 1, and then the z index here is going to be auto, and then the transition can remain, doesn't really matter. And then for the header nav and for the open class, then we're going to say position this as relative. So we are just basically resetting all the styles. And then we're going to say, let me see, the width is going to be auto, the background color is going to be transparent, and then the padding is going to be 0, the z index is going to be auto, there we go. And then for the header nav ul, so for the dot header, for the nav ul, we're going to say position relative, and then bring it to the top by 0, bring it to the top by 0, and then transform. I think the transform doesn't really matter. Let me just say transform translate on the y-axis by 0%, just to make sure that everything resets properly. 0%, where's percent? There we go. And then where is it? What next? We need to access the header and the, let me see, the nav ul and the list item. We need to set the margin to 0 all around, but we're going to change this up. And then let's save this and let's see. So we have this, right? And then now what we need to do is we don't want this close button to appear. So right above, because the close button is inside the navbar but before the ul, so I'm going to say that for the header, and then for the navbar I want to access the id of menu dash close and say display none, so that now this is going to disappear on large screens. And then let me see, the reason why this is here is because we haven't reset this. So the header nav open, so bring it to the right by 0 to the let me see, let me say left 0, bring it upwards. What happens? Nothing happens. And if I say right 0, nothing will happen either. Okay, so nothing happens. So let me see, why doesn't this go all the way to the end? Let me try and figure out the problem. Display flex is here, that is correct. Menu close is here. And then, oh, you know what? This needs to align as a flex box. So for the header nav UL here, we need to say what classes they have here. Okay, we need to say display this as a flex box, bring it upwards here. Okay, and then align item center and justify content to the center, and then add a gap here of about, let me say 2 rem, separate them out. And then, oh, you know what, I've just remembered that there's a hover state for these list items. So let me just add the hover state here. Let me copy this, paste it here, and say for the hover, it changes the color into this HSL red. There we go. So that's the hover state for this, for the list items. And then now, why isn't this going all the way to the end? Let me check my console whether I've added something here that I can't see. So this is the header. So what did I add here? What usually causes this? I'm forgetting what causes this. Let me just find it, and then I'll skip the video to where I find it. Okay, so I've found out where the issue is, and in order to fix it, then we need to go ahead and give the header nav a width of 100%, and then we need to go into the header nav UL and change the justify content here and change it to flex end, which is going to push it to the end. And that is much better. That is much better. You can see that we have built this out in about an hour or so. And then now let's go ahead and create a GitHub repository for this. And then let's also submit it to Netlify. So Netlify, and then let's create a GitHub for this. And then I think we can close this. I think we are done with it. Let me close all of this down. And using Control and J, let's open up our terminal because we're going to be submitting this. If this is going to load any faster, any day now. Why is this so slow? So this is logged in. Okay, fantastic. We need to create a new repository, and then we're going to create this, and I'm going to call it news homepage YT, and then it's going to be a public repository. So just say create repository, and then we're going to copy this link, which is the link to our remote repository. So copy it, and then what I'm going to say is get init, which is going to initialize our Git repository here, and then I can say git add all. So add everything inside this repository, and then git commit -m, and I'm going to say initial commit as the message and project complete, and then close it out. And then I'm going to say git remote add origin, and then paste in our link that we copied. Oops, did I not copy it? What? Copy this link and paste it here. There we go. And then I'm going to say git push -u origin main, so push it to the main branch of your repository. And then once this pushes, then we can reload this page, and we're going to see our repository if this is going to be pushed any day today. And then we can close our server. We don't really need it anymore. There we go. And then when we reload this, then we're going to see our repository that we've just created here, so 40 seconds ago. And then we can go into Netlify, and then we can say add new site from existing project from GitHub. And then it's going to authenticate whether you're logged in to GitHub. And then we're just going to search for news homepage. Let's search for that. And searching, and searching. So searching, and here it is. So we're just going to click on this, and then we're going to say deploy site. We don't need to change any of these settings. It's going to be quite automatic. And then we're going to change the site name here and change site name into TsbSankara. Let me say news homepage, news-homepage, or let me say in homepage YT, just to keep it consistent with the repository. And then we can now visit this page, and we are going to have our application. There we go. Would you look at that? Looking quite nice. And then finally, let's submit it to Frontend Mentor. So here, submit solution. Let's say live site URL is this one. Repository URL is this one. Oops. Copy, paste it here, and then say mobile first news homepage in vanilla HTML and CSS, and then let's just say submit solution. And then we're going to wait a moment. We can now close this. We can close this and this and this, and there we go. So we have our solution here. We can say view solution, and then we can compare our design to, we can compare our solution to the design, and you can see that we have this. So not too bad, not too bad. And yeah, that's looking quite nice. And so that is going to be the end of the video. And if you like it, I said this thing has a background color. I just couldn't tell whether it was like gray or what, because this is white, our solution is white, but this is a bit grayed out or red, something like that. So you can add that in if you want. But yeah, that is going to be the end of the video. And if you liked it, then please leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and I will see you in the next video. Bye. Hello there, I'm hoping to reach 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So please subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and ring the notification bell so that you're always going to be notified of when I upload a new video.